I see you gather before me. Hungry, terrified, clutching your babes to your breast. Emperor Emir has marched his legions into our lands, laid siege to every fortress from here to the Blue Mountains. Rabid and ravenous, he bites and bites away. Men of the North, you stand at the precipice. Your kings have failed you, so now you turn to the gods. And yet you do not plead. You do not kneel to dust your heads with ash. Instead you wail, why have the gods forsaken us? We must look into the trials we failed long ago. In a time past, our world intertwined with another through an upheaval scholars call the conjunction of the spheres. The gods allowed unholy forces to slip into our domain. The offspring of that cataclysm was the nefarious force called magic. Yet we did not banish it, instead studying the vile arcane for our own power and wealth. And the monsters at our door, the unholy relics of this conjunction. The trolls, the corpse eaters, the werewolves. Did we raise our swords against them? Or have we laid this burden on others? On so-called witches. Stray children taught the ways of foul sorcery, their bodies mutated through blasphemous ritual. Sent to fight monsters, though they could not distinguish good from evil. The flicker of humanity, long extinguished within them. Yes, their numbers have dwindled through the years. But a few still roam our lands, offering their bloody work for coin. To this day, they shame us with their very existence. The North bleeds, flogged by war. The battles are the gods' whip, chastisement for our sins. And let us not forget the terrors, the scourges from beyond our world. The wild hunt rides the sky with every full moon. The Dark Raiders abduct our children into lands unknown. Some say they herald a second conjunction. Can we chart a course back into the light? Will we find the strength to banish the mages from our kingdoms? Unite around the warmth of the eternal fire. Nigh is the time of the sword and axe. None will fight this war in our stead. Nigh is the time of madness and disdain.
What's up everyone, Darcblade here with my video review of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Developed by the Polish video game developer CD Projekt Red, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was released on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC. It also had a worldwide launch date of the 19th of May 2015. The Witcher 3 is the third game in the series, following The Witcher and The Witcher 2, Assassin of Kings. All the games in the series are based off a series of fantasy books of the same name. All the games though take place after the books. Both the books and the previous games are highly praised for being dark and mature fantasies. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a very ambitious game, as it is now a fully open world game, said to be one of the biggest open world fantasy games ever made. So, can Geralt's new adventure live up to the books in the previous games? Let's find out. The story of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is the concluding story of the Witcher Geralt of Rivia. Witches are a type of genetically mutated warrior designed to hunt down and kill beasts and monsters. In the past, witches were needed, but as time has gone on, humanity does not need the witches like they once did. Geralt has been the main series protagonist, whose story has been the main focus for the previous games. Following the events of The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, the world has changed. Nilfgaard has invaded the Northern Kingdoms, conquering everything that stands in their path. The Northern Kingdoms we have come to know in the second Witcher game still try to fight for their own independence. This is the game's starting backdrop. Geralt starts the game by being summoned before the Emperor of Nilfgaard. There he is given a task, to track down a young woman with white hair, who is known as Ciri, and bring her back to the Emperor. The Emperor has also enlisted a sorceress to aid in the search. The sorceress is none other than Yennefer, a character which Geralt has a deep history with, and who he was searching for in the previous game. Thus Geralt heads out into the vast world to meet up with Yennefer and find Ciri. Things though are not as simple as they sound, as a cavalcade of unstoppable wraiths known as the Wild Hunt are also in pursuit of Ciri. Ciri is the central aspect of The Witcher 3, as she possesses great power that many are drawn to. She is also linked to both Geralt and Yennefer in a personal way too. From this point the story branches out as you travel the world. You will meet characters from Geralt's past as well as new ones. Each character has tales to tell and each is interesting in their own way. Divided into 3 acts, the game is dense with many subplots intertwining with the main plot. While in most open world games you can lose the main plot easily by going off the beaten path. However, in The Witcher 3, quests are clearly divided, so you can put yourself back on the critical path easily. Each of the side quests you take part in have their own little condensed story that will keep you interested in them till the end. As Geralt is now older, he feels like a father figure to the game. Despite this, the game does take an interesting step, as Geralt is not the main focus of the game's overall critical path. Similar to other Witcher games, playing as Geralt, you will be faced with a dark world of both men and monsters. He will see the good and bad that this world has to offer, with a highlight on the bad. He will witness greed, murder, lust, racism and more. All these aspects are tackled with an adult theme that adds to the game's maturity. Sometimes Geralt will be forced to take sides or to make choices. However, these moral choices are never clear cut. There is always a shade of grey that makes your choices have an unclear result. These can change the game in many ways, and by the time you reach the game's finale, you will be rewarded with one of the game's many endings. I would like to go into greater depth about the story, especially the later acts, but that would contain so many spoilers, so I will simply say that the story is one of the greatest I have played in recent years, keeping me invested from start to finish. Despite the fact that nothing is black and white in the game's story, brings a sense of reality that other games of the fantasy genre sometimes fail to bring. The only downside about the story in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is it's not really newcomer friendly. Although you don't have to have played the other games to get into this game, if you have played the other games or the books, it really does help, as you have a more emotional connection to the characters in the game. Going into this for the first time, you will have no connection to some of the characters you do meet. The gameplay in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is on the Red Engine 3 game engine, which is developed by CD Projekt Red. It was made for non-linear role-playing games aimed at open world environments. As a result, The Witcher 3 boasts no load screens while you're exploring, and gives players a vast visual environment to freely roam and explore. However, there are load screens on death and when you fast travel, the former being annoyingly long. As you explore the world, you will come across many towns and characters. These will provide many side quests and activities to take part in. As with most open world games, you can easily get lost doing side activities, but with The Witcher 3 they don't feel like a chore, as they are fully acted and normally have their own little condensed story. You will also experience crafting, leveling up, talent trees to augment your character, many weapons and armour, all the aspects you would expect to find in an open world RPG. Mutagens also return that boost certain stats in your talent trees too. All of these aspects are done with a polish that does not make them feel dull, although I do have to complain a little bit about some of the looks of the armour pieces you pick up early in the game. Out of combat while exploring, you will have access to Geralt's Witcher senses that highlight elements of the world that may be of interest to you and that you can interact with. This helps pick out things from this highly detailed world. During your time in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, you'll spend a fair amount of time in combat with various enemies. A Witcher always carries 2 swords into combat, one steel, used for human enemies, the other silver, which is used for monsters. Witchers also use signs, which are basically magical attacks and buffs for your character. These sometimes can be vital in combat. New to the Witcher series is the crossbow, that allows Geralt some ranged options in combat. Lastly, a Witcher has access to alchemy, which consists of decoctions, potions, blade oils and grenades. The decoction, potions and blade oils provide buffs over a certain amount of time, and the grenades are, well, grenades that have different effects to them. Geralt uses his sword to dish out the main source of damage to foes. This is through light and heavy strikes. He can also parry and dodge incoming attacks. Mastering the two types of dodges Geralt has is key to surviving combat in this game. He also can lock onto foes, which is handy for single targets, but when faced with a group of enemies can be a little annoying. When facing groups, it's sometimes better just to free aim and not lock on. These all combine together to form The Witcher 3's combat. Combat is very deep, but it does take a little time to get used to, and you cannot just wade into groups of foes without the right signs, gear or spec. It sometimes pays off to be a little patient when it comes to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt's combat. One thing about The Witcher 3's combat aspect is to study foes and to know what you're going up against. You cannot take most decoctions and oil buffs mid-fight, so knowing what you're going up against can certainly make a difference by applying the right buffs before the fight starts. This is an absolute must on the harder difficulties. Remember, Geralt is not a tank. Although at the higher levels he can be spec'd to be more of a tank, he cannot take a lot of incoming damage, so using all aspects of combat will allow you to survive longer. Geralt can now heal mid-combat better than in previous games, via healing related potions or by consuming food items that provide a little bit of health regeneration while in combat. So don't be scared to eat that chicken sandwich mid-fight. Out of combat, use the meditate system to restore lost health and replenish certain supplies. However, the health restored via meditating is disabled on the harder difficulties. During your time in the world, you won't have to spend it all on foot. As you travel, you will gain access to your horse, roach and a boat, allowing you to get to places quicker. Of course, there is a fast travel system in areas once you unlock them too. You will also get to experience the game through some other characters' eyes as you progress through the story. However, Geralt is the main playable character in The Witcher 3's story. There is also a side game called Gwent, which, if you can get into it, is one of the best card games I've seen in an RPG to date. Basically, your deck consists of characters and troops from one of 4 factions. You have the Northern Realm deck, Nilfgaard deck, Squirtail deck, and finally the Monster deck. Each of these factions has many different tactics that you can use during your time playing Gwent. Over the course of a best out of 3 competition, players will put down cards of different values, and the highest total wins the round. Of course, there are other elements in the game that can affect the numbers, but that would take a long time to explain, and for the sake of this review, I will just say that there is a lot of strategy and mind games in this side activity. As you go through The Witcher 3, you will collect different cards to expand your deck. This can be done by either purchasing the cards from vendors or by playing people in the different towns. I need to mention the game can be kind of easy. As you level up by doing side quests, you can soon overlevel the main plot story. With this in mind, maybe it is better to set the difficulty bar a little higher than you normally would. Okay, it means that the start of the game may be tough, but even on the harder difficulties, you can still outlevel the main quests in this game. If the game does not manage to get the better of you, there is no real punishment for dying, apart from long load screens, and a return to your last checkpoint. However, it is advisable to save often. The gameplay of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt has expanded upon every aspect of the previous games to make it smooth and streamlined. While it may not be perfect, as you will encounter the odd control or quest bug or hiccup here and there, it at least does a decent enough job to not detract from the game's overall experience and still leave you fulfilled. Alas, for better or for worse, there is no multiplayer in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, although I personally would have loved to have seen a multiplayer version of Gwent. The presentation is one of the highlights of this game. The Witcher series has always strived to draw players into their world, and the presentation of the series has always been one of the keys to achieving this. The world of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a beauty to behold. The sprawling landscapes are brought to life through the fine details in the different types of environments you will visit during your time with the game. Each town you visit, each forest you explore, from Novigrad to Skellige, everything has a life of its own that adds to the grandeur of this game. The character models are some of the best around, with facial animations looking in time with dialogue, as well as giving a range of emotions to characters. Fighting animations are smooth and lifelike, with a visceral feel when a limb or head is lost. The voice acting is performed well and adds life to the characters and the overall story. Geralt's English voice actor, Doug Cockle, has improved since I first heard him in the original Witcher game. There is a wide range of accents depending on a character's location or what race they are that really helps the immersion of the game. I personally loved the British accents in the English version of the game. It gave me a sense of feeling close to home, especially with the West Country accents. Lastly, the musical score and sound effects are a mix of unique songs and lifelike noises that feel at home in the world of The Witcher. Whenever you start combat, the music kicks in, drawing you into the battle. While not in combat, the sounds of the world around you gives the game a certain serenity via wildlife sounds or the sounds of the winds blowing through trees. Overall, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt has all the makings of one of the best open world RPGs to date, maybe even one of the greatest games to date. You could describe the game, when comparing it to others in the industry, as a fantasy open world GTA, Red Dead Redemption or Skyrim, combined with the storytelling of a BioWare game or even Game of Thrones. Finally, you can describe the combat gameplay as something you may find in a Dark Souls game, although not as tough. Each area of the game has had a lot of effort and love put into it. The main story is dense with so many plots entwining with others. It's a grand adventure to be a part of. From the critical path to the side quests, each had me invested, making it very hard to put the controller down, despite playing for hours on end. The gameplay, while not perfect, is close to it. There are no major issues with it, as the various aspects are all functional despite the odd gripe here and there. The enjoyment of the gameplay for me came down to how deep the game is. From its combat to Gwent, everything has multiple layers and sets a benchmark at what future games should strive for, especially when tackling this type of genre. The presentation, no matter what system you play on, looks amazing. Okay, in a while I'm sure that PC players will be able to crank the graphics up even further, but right now the environments, the animation, characters, voice acting and sound design all shine. With this in mind, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a long game. Over the course of the 3 acts and doing everything the game has to offer, it will take you hundreds of hours to complete, and I'm sure not every player will have the same experience by the time the credits roll. What I experienced from The Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt was worth the money. Even if you play through the game only once, you would have gotten your money's worth out of this game. If you enjoy RPGs, open world fantasy environments, or a dense or dark political fantasy adventure story, then The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a must-have. For me, this is probably one of the best games I've played in recent years. Anyway, I've been Darcblade, bringing you my video review of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.
Here already. Come on, let's find some arse rests. Should start soon.
These scars long have yearned for your tender caress, to bind our fortunes. Damn what the stars own. Rend my heart open, then your love profess, a winding, weaving fate to which we both atone. You flee, my dream come the morning. Your scent, berries tart, lilac sweet, to dream of raven locks and twisted stormy, of violet eyes glistening as you weep. The wolf I will follow into the to find your heart, its passion displaced by our ever-growing, hardening into stone, amidst the cold to hold you in a heated embrace. You flee, my dream come the morning, your scent berries tart, lilac sweet, to dream of raven locks and twisted stormy, of violet eyes glistening as you weep. I know not if fate would have us live as one, or if by love's blind chance we've been bound. The wish I whispered when it all began, did it forge a love you might never have found? You flee, my dream come the morning, your scent berries tart, lilac sweet, to dream of raven locks and twisted